Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about Godzilla, City on the Edge of Battle. I should say that with this Godzilla anime franchise trilogy thing, is that I initially really liked the idea of an animated Godzilla movie. That sounded amazing. There had never been one, a fully animated Godzilla movie. And then, hey, an anime Godzilla movie? We haven't done that either, so that'll be cool too. There's no way that this franchise can be a bad movie. Unfortunately, these movies are usually insanely disappointing. I think this one is maybe less insanely disappointing, but manages to find ways to disappoint, almost like it's trolling us. Like they're like, hey, guess what, we got to make these animated Godzilla movies and fuck all of y'all because you'll fucking watch them, because you'll watch anything that's new with Godzilla on it. And sure, I am a person like that, but I also sort of don't get what they're even thinking with these movies at this point. I don't understand whose idea it was to give these people control of Godzilla for like an entire trilogy of animated films, especially after that last one. What was it, in Pacific Rim, where they're like, we are canceling the apocalypse? I don't know why I use that. There's kaiju in that, so sure. I wish someone at Netflix or Toho had done that with these, because they ain't good. It's just not happening, you know? We have 3 Godzilla franchises running at the same time. One in America, live action. One in Japan, live action, which is now being rebooted or something. That's like a whole thing. I don't understand it. And then you have this animated thing. I think this film has a promising start where what really held back the original was, as hyped as I was to see that film, it had so much backstory going on at the beginning. By the time it got through that, which was most of the movie, I was so bored. It was just like, how many concepts are you going to introduce? Like, there's aliens involved, humanity all went off Earth, and we're flying through space. And because of the way space travel is, they were in space for 20,000 years, but it's actually like 20 or 40 years or something. Or to them it felt that way. So when they get back to Earth and it's like been 20,000 years and Godzilla's been ruling Earth in this post-apocalyptic world, which, by the way, that sort of sounds awesome, but they spend a lot of time explaining like the political situation of the ship and all sorts of other dumb nonsense like that, which makes you kind of go like, how did you fuck this up? Like, I also don't really understand why, if you have an animated Godzilla movie, you couldn't have a movie from Godzilla's perspective, which honestly would be interesting to me, but whatever. And this one just starts off, they're on the planet, they thought they could kill Godzilla. Spoilers, they didn't. So they're first trapped on 20,000 years in the future Earth with this weird tribe of people, and that starts out promisingly enough. You could see things going differently. They're not introducing way too much backstory initially, so that's cool. But then it slowly and surely takes on the plot of the original Godzilla, Planet of the Monsters, and then you get really bored again. And I think one of the things that really makes it boring is this was kind of promised to a lot of people, and to me by no one really, but it was promised on the poster. Kind of in the background, you see this looming Mechagodzilla, and you're like, oh man, Mechagodzilla and Godzilla, this is going to be awesome. We're going to see these two guys fight. This movie is going to save itself, even though this structure is dumb, even though they have a really stupid, convoluted, Home Alone-esque, like, trap to get Godzilla, which really all Godzilla had to do is, like, come at them the opposite way, but doesn't. But so, you think, but Mechagodzilla is going to be here. No. See, here's the thing. The titular City on the Edge of Battle, this is a spoiler, I guess, but it's more of a helpful hint, I guess. The titular city of the City on the Edge of Battle is Mechagodzilla. Over the 20,000 years, he evolved and became a city. Now, you're like, oh, so he's a city that can be a robot. No, he's just a city. So that's not fun. I want to see Mechagodzilla fight Godzilla. Oh, when is that going to happen in this movie? Oh, cool, never. Wow, that sounds like it sucks. That's like this whole thing is like, okay, so you have these cool vulture things and you're going to come up with a plan. And I was like sort of with the movie a little, but then they get into like nanobot technology or nanometal or whatever. I do think one of this film's assets, believe it or not, is the previous movie, because it got to introduce all its stupid backstory bullshit way before this movie, so it doesn't have to get into that. But it acts like I sort of cared about all its backstory bullshit, which I didn't, and no one did. And all these things of like having like a warrior race of people and a other alien group of people, and then humanity all working together, that like just doesn't really work as well, especially the ones that aren't the warrior ones. I was kind of like, what are you guys leading to something? You're like the other people who didn't help kill Godzilla. I find this film so disappointing because it's like something that you so want to be good, and the fact that it sort of teases and even made merchandise apparently of Mechagodzilla, and then he's just not in it really, is so disappointing. And so, I mean, it is like it's trolling you. It is like it's just telling you, hey, we're not actually going to do this. We're going to make this stupid plotline, which I honestly sort of wonder, like, did these people like have this idea and they just wanted to do it, and they realized if we put it on a popular franchise and more people will see it? But it's like, I don't even really care, and I don't think anyone does. It's like, you want to see Godzilla and he's barely in it. I noticed there's a video on YouTube, it's like every scene from this movie with Godzilla in it, and I think the video is 5 minutes long. It's really, you know, a bunch of nonsense bullshit, and also Godzilla in it is a much more accurate description of this movie. And I don't think any of the political stuff really says anything about our modern age or something like that. It's like reading somebody's like very long science fiction novel that's very involved, that they think is really clever, and then like while they're describing it to you, you fall asleep, and then you wake up and they're still talking, and you're like, wait, what is going on right now? And that is just like, that is the plot of this. It's so convoluted, it's so stupid. It feels like they were let to like kind of go off creatively, and I don't know if like anything in this movie makes me understand why they let them do that. It is the least interesting franchise of the current Godzilla things, but it's also like, I don't know if I'm as disappointed, since I knew this would be sort of disappointing. I knew it was coming out sort of soon, but then I just was on Netflix, and I was like, oh cool, I guess I got a sequel. We live in an interesting era of the Godzilla franchise because all these different filmmakers are doing different things with it, but this is the one where it's like, I think Shin Godzilla and even the American Godzilla films are trying to say something with Godzilla. Whether Americans should say things with Godzilla or not is like a whole different video really, but in this case it's like, I don't think they want to say anything about Godzilla and what Godzilla represents and what that franchise is represented. I think they wanted to do their own weird anime thing that they really should have done somewhere else, that I don't have to see and can ignore like people do with a lot of anime. Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle, just like the whole, what they're writing about just infected this movie and this franchise to such a degree, it is nearly unwatchable. The character designs are ugly. I don't like the animation. I still think Godzilla looks cool, but it's like, you have apparently a planet of monsters, like where are all these other monsters? Like there's not enough. I think there's another one. It's like, get rid of that. We need to have like a ton of kaiju in this. It wasn't just Godzilla that took down the earth in this universe or whatever. That's like something I remembered from the one that I didn't want to remember. There's so many cool things you could do with a post-apocalyptic world run by kaiju, and you have Mechagodzilla. You could have several different kaiju from the Godzilla universe fighting one another, and you just like don't do it. It just boggles my mind, like, well, why not? Because you've somehow made the part of Godzilla movies that nobody likes even more complicated and more stupid than anyone else ever could. Like, Shin Godzilla was saying something, and is, you know, not maybe necessarily my favorite movie in the world or my cup of tea normally, but I actually do enjoy that film and think about it quite a bit. Probably more interesting than good, but I find it interesting enough that it like makes you think about the various things that you can do with Godzilla. It shows you the richness of that character, and this shows you how you can just totally forget about that and go on your own stupid bullshit. And it's like very upsetting, very disappointing, and I question these people as filmmakers, because it really doesn't feel like they understand the traditions of Godzilla, the traditions of the franchise and what it represents. It feels like they're like, well, what if we did this thing and like Godzilla's involved or something? Like, it just isn't saying anything. It's just trying to do this long plot line. It doesn't really even flow like a trilogy. It feels like this one they're really pushing it towards that. This doesn't necessarily feel as much like a middle one. It just feels like they get to a place so they keep this stupid thing going. And I really don't get like what the point is. Like, why have a trilogy of these? Why not just have one? That was horrible enough. Like, can Topher Grace cut this down into like one movie when it's all over, you know, and then I can maybe not watch it, hopefully. I just like don't really like these. They never really capture my attention or my imagination like a Godzilla movie really should, and go like, wow, it's so cool that, you know, a giant kaiju monster movie can say so much, and especially one that has a rich tradition of it. And I think Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle is a little bit cooler and starts off in a way that you're like, okay, this could be different. But as soon as you realize Mechagodzilla is a city, you go, wow, that's dumb, and it just never gets you back. And there's nothing in it that even tries to get you back. It just like kind of keeps you at an arm's length by doing this ridiculous plot. And I don't get the impression this did very well in Japan. There's certain people who just sort of will love any Godzilla movie, and I do like, you know, certain things with this insanely overpowered Godzilla and him attacking the humans. That's kind of neat, but the amount of crap you have to go through, it's just like a cheeseburger with a whole head of lettuce on it. The burger or the meat patty could be really amazing, but it sort of doesn't matter because you just overdid it on the lettuce, and that doesn't sound very appetizing or sensible or like something anyone in their right mind would do. That's kind of how I feel with this franchise at this point. It's like, why do I keep doing this to myself? Why did Netflix and all of them approve this? This is one of the worst kind of franchises going right now. There's like glimmers of hope, and there's more glimmers of hope in this than there were in the original film. I say this is actually slightly better than the last one, but on purely like some like cool like watching explosions kind of reason. In terms of plot or anything like this, the only reason this one's a little more tolerable is because it just doesn't hit me over the head with so much backstory I go to sleep. Hit me with other backstory at some times, which I was still bored by. It didn't just completely overdo it with that. You know, I guess the last one's excuse, it was starting off a franchise. This one's excuse is that this franchise is fucking awful, and it just doesn't seem to be able to bounce back from it and do something really interesting with it. Just step away from all of its stupid continuity. This has just been really one of the worst kind of things going on with Godzilla in recent memory, and I really wish they'd find a way, when you have so many filmmakers doing interesting things, whether they work or not, they are trying to do interesting things, trying to do different things, trying to say something with it and do something with this character. And I think, sure, they did something different with it, but it's not interesting. It is boring, and this franchise deserves better than what these two films have been putting out. It deserves a lot better than the convolutedness of this. Maybe this would have worked better in a TV series, and maybe that's what they were trying to do, but they should have adapted it a lot better, because having two alien races and people from the future and a post-apocalyptic Godzilla and ruining it with, you know, a Mechagodzilla reveal that doesn't happen. There's just too much going on and too much disappointing to get through Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle to make it kind of an awesome, epic, explosion-y, you know, fun Godzilla movie, or at least one that says something. But it does neither of those things, and what you're left with is an anime that you probably would never watch if Godzilla wasn't involved. And that's something that this character in this franchise shouldn't be forced to prop up such a weak group of characters in a plotline just so people could potentially be interested in something that is insanely uninteresting, almost provocatively uninteresting, and something that I doubt anyone would get compelled or interested in if Godzilla wasn't really main goal MacGuffin of this whole thing. And that's probably what's the real upsetting part, is you can complain about forgettable, you know, the human storylines in a Godzilla movie, but honestly, these have to be some of the worst that I've ever seen. And it's really sad that these get to be the animated Godzilla movies. Is probably one of the more disappointing things cinematically of this year. So if you've seen Godzilla City on the Edge of Battle and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to.